Today, Tulsi Gabbard is officially announcing that she's running for president. And at the same time, NBC News decides to release an article saying that she's being propped up by the Russians. I mean, the smear campaign against Tulsi Gabbard it's honestly appalling. It really is. This is the article. They say Russia's propaganda machine discovers 2020 Democratic candidate Tulsi Gabbard. Experts who track websites and social media linked to Russia have seen stirrings of a possible campaign of support for Hawaii Democrat Tulsi Gabbard. Oh my gosh, the Russians are supporting Tulsi Gabbard. They say the Russian propaganda machine that tried to influence the 2016 U.S. election is now promoting the presidential aspirations of a controversial Hawaii Democrat who earlier this month declared her intention to run for president in 2020. An NBC News analysis of the main English language news sites employed by Russia in its 2016 election meddling shows Representative Tulsi Gabbard of Hawaii, who was set to make her formal announcement Saturday, has become a favorite of the sites Moscow used when it interfered in 2016. Okay, so Russia likes Tulsi Gabbard. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they don't like Tulsi Gabbard, and Russia has learned by watching what's going on in our political climate that they are the big boogeyman, and that the Americans are very, very wary of Russian-backed anything, that we are going after Trump for being potentially in bed with Russians, and basically any politician who's in bed with Russians is extremely suspicious to the American people. So what would you do if you were Russia and you absolutely hated a candidate at this point? Now, in 2016, it was different because America didn't really know about you and what you were doing. So you could go and prop up the candidate you actually liked. You could support the candidate you liked, that you wanted in office. But now the climate has completely changed and America's onto you. So if America's onto you and you really, really do not like a candidate and you do not want them to be in office, what would you do? Well, you would start promoting them if you were Russia. You would make it obvious. You would completely go out there and say, yes, this candidate, Russia is for this candidate. Because now Americans are going to turn around and say, oh my gosh, Russia is supporting them. No, we will not support that candidate. I mean, how stupid are we? The Russians count on this. They count on our stupidity. They really do. And that would be really dumb. To believe that and then to say, oh my gosh, she's in bed with the Russians. That's it. I'm not voting for her. That's what they want. That's what they want. So there's that. Now, let's say I'm wrong. Maybe Russia does really like Tulsi Gabbard. Maybe they do. Maybe they really like her and they really like Trump. Well, why? Why would Russia like Tulsi Gabbard? It's not like she's pro-Putin. It's not like she's pro-Russia, really. I mean, why would they like her? Why would they support Trump and Tulsi Gabbard and not Hillary Clinton and not any of these other mainstream establishment Dems who are just going to be puppets in the White House for the establishment? Well, now for very different reasons, both candidates were anti-war. Trump has his own reasons for being anti-intervention, anti-war, although we're not really quite sure if Trump is or he isn't. He seems to have a lot of, because the guy he's just, he doesn't really have any ideology. He's just with the wind, whatever's going to work, whatever's going to make him some money. So he's on one hand saying, yeah, I'm anti-interventionist because he's, got interests with Russia and interests here, there, and the other or whatever. And so he's saying one thing, but then the big money industry of the military, industrialized military machine comes at him on the other side and says, hey, listen, we really want war because this makes us a lot of money. And, we want to keep arming terrorists and we want to keep doing all of these things. And so we want all this big money. This is really helpful to us. We want to keep selling arms to Saudi Arabia. And, maybe we want to even march into Venezuela now because that would be really good for business. We have to make a lot of weapons. So he's got it kind of coming from two sides, which is why you see this really mercurial president who says one thing and then he says another and then he says another thing and then he says another. It just kind of depends on who he ate with that day. Lunch with somebody who was anti-interventionist because it was somebody tied to some Russian oligarch, and dinner was with these, Lockheed Martin people who were telling him that they absolutely want war. I mean, I don't know. That's how this guy works. But Russia, I think, likes that Trump is anti-intervention because ultimately what Russia wants and what China wants and what much of the world wants is for us to stay on our side of the hemisphere. They just want us to stick to our side of the globe and leave them and their affairs alone. They would like us to back off. So it is something Russia wants, is that they want us to be less of a world police, and we're not even world police. I mean, we're like beyond police. We're going in and we're raiding places. We're taking oil. We're destroying communities and economies. I mean, that's what we're doing. We're not just policing. It's beyond that. And they want us to stop doing that because they've got their own interest in order to build up their own economy. Fair enough, because everybody does that. That's not just, oh, wow, look at the big bad Russians. They're wanting to build up their economy and protect their people. That's everybody. Everybody wants to do that. So Tulsi has very different reasons for being anti-interventionist than Trump. She has seen war. She was a combat medic. She's seen the atrocities. She sees the effects that it has on vets. She sees that it's a waste of money and the effect it has on the communities of the people that we march into their regions and we take over. And she sees all of this and she says, this is a waste and this is horrible. It's horrible to do to the American people. It's a waste of our money. It's horrible to do to our vets. It's war they should not be in. This is not protecting Americans' freedoms. And it's certainly going into regions and it's destroying them. And it's leaving these people destitute and enslaved and without water and without power and being completely abused because we're destroying their communities and any sort of stability they might have had, and we're completely destabilizing regions. So she is saying, from that perspective, she doesn't want us to be marching more into war. Well, okay, those are two different reasons why we don't want interventionist-style wars. But no matter, Russia doesn't care why, right? I mean, they're sitting there thinking, we don't care why, we just want you to stop doing it because we want to be in our side of the world. Now, I know that freaks out a lot of people. People say, well, if Russia wants that, then we absolutely should not do what they want. And that's crazy. I mean, we are willing to basically go against our own best interests because we want to just be against the enemy. We just want to do the opposite of what they want, even if it's against our own best interests. Even if Russia's sitting there saying, God, it's good for you and it's good for us. Like, just go, do it, just it's good for you, it's good for us. And then we say, no, we got to protect the people that are in this region, and we got to protect these people, and we got to protect those people. And then those people in those regions are kind of saying, you know what, we don't even know if we want you to protect us. I mean, half of us do, but half of us don't. And so it's just paying attention to what we want because of monetary gain rather than actually listening to the people. Crimea being an example of this. Now, I don't know everything about Crimea, so I am talking a little bit ignorantly about this, but what I have read is that many of the people in Crimea were actually pro-Russia. And so I think that's why ultimately when Russia annexed Crimea, our government really didn't do anything about it. And it was because ultimately the people in that region didn't want anybody to do anything about it. That's kind of what I read. But now I don't know the source. I don't remember where I read that. That could be some propaganda for all I know. And please comment below whether or not you've seen that to be true, because I'm admitting to you right now I'm not 100% on that. But what I do know is that we think we know what people in regions of the world want, and the reality is we don't. I mean, the reality is we don't. We march in and we do things thinking that this is for the benefit of the people, and ultimately it's often not. And also, ultimately, the people can defend themselves. We can give the people support to be able to defend themselves, because we keep thinking we're going to go and march in and win wars. And when was the last time we did that? When was the last time we actually marched in and took over and we were like Captain America? So, Russia maybe has some motive that they would just like us to kind of stick to our side. And just by virtue of being anti-Russia is not enough to justify doing the opposite of what they want, even when it's in our own best interest. I can't stress that enough. It's like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So this whole thing of these Russians potentially supporting Tulsi Gabbard, the reality is you don't know why. You don't know if they're doing it because she's anti-interventionist and they like anyone who's anti-interventionist, Republican or Democrat. They don't care. They just want an anti-interventionist in the White House, which is better for the American people. What do we care more about? Do we care more about being anti-Russia, or do we care more about the American people? And secondly, they might just be against anybody that they don't like. I mean, you can't figure that out. You don't know. So it's best to just ignore it. But NBC News decides to go ahead and splash this on their pages when Tulsi's about to announce her actual official presidential campaign. That's the way it is. She's got the target on her back. I'm really curious to see how they'll treat Bernie Sanders if he does decide to throw his hat in the ring. I'm really, really curious if they're going to go through the same level of smearing as they are Tulsi. But I think Tulsi's a little more dangerous to them because she's a minority female. And I think that they're kind of playing on the identity quite a bit. And so Tulsi's extra to them this election cycle, extra dangerous because not only is she a progressive, which they don't like, but she's also checking off the boxes that they're trying to gain, that they're running on. So I think that's why they're going through this real hefty smear campaign of her. I think she's getting double the dose of what, let's say, Bernie would get, or even Elizabeth Warren. I think she's getting double the dose. But the best thing for any of these progressive candidates to do is to just ignore it and to keep going with the message, because the people are hearing it. The people will hear the message. It will resonate with them. And all of these others are just going to end up looking like absolute fools when it's all said and done, because the American people, I think, will hear the truth. And eyes are opening. So comment below anything that I'm definitely always open to learning more, for sure. I don't know everything. I try my best to research, but, I can only do so much as one person. So I do appreciate your feedback. I really do. I really like to get show suggestions, things that you would like me to talk about and research and get out there some messages. I know that I've done a lot of videos on Tulsi. I really like Tulsi a lot, but a lot of that is because there is such a smear campaign against her that it's crazy. It's crazy. So, and also, if you would be so kind to support me through Patreon, that would be really, really great. I really could use the help. I would love to be able to hire a producer and to upgrade the studio a little bit so that I can broadcast clear content to you, and maybe even live content would be really, really great. But any support you can give me would be much appreciated. So thank you so much for joining me, and happy Saturday.